Give us a sense of what's going to happen this week. And we get up to that midnight Thursday night deadline.
Yeah, well, it's difficult to know exactly how this is going to play out. I think at this point, Congress is kind of operating day to day. You identify it correctly. There's this tangle of incentives where the Democrats want to get something done on the Dreamers. The Republicans want to keep the government open. They want to tie Dreamers to border security. And I think at this point, it's kind of anyone's guess how that's going to happen. Our base case, we've had a lot of opportunities for shutdowns over the years. We obviously just went through one. Our base case on shutdowns generally is that they typically don't happen. You kind of find a way to muddle through. That should more or less be the same here, but what's changing here is if you push out the funding deadline with another temporary extension, you kind of bring the debt ceiling into play, and that's something that markets should take a little more seriously. A short-term, shutdown like the one we just had really doesn't fundamentally impact GDP all that much. Debt ceiling may be a different story.
So last week, the president, if anything, seemed to harden his position on DACA and what he needed in terms of border security and what he needed in terms of chain migration, as he calls it, things like that.
Yeah.
At the same time, he's got Republicans up on the Hill now who seem to be moving away from him, both the House and the Senate side. Is there a danger he could undermine his own base up there?
I mean, it's possible, but at this point, the lines aren't very clear, right? The president has expressed sentiments around the Dreamers in some ways that are more in line with the Democrats, and then ways that are more in line with kind of the hardcore conservative Republicans. I think fundamentally the problem here is that we got through the last shutdown in part because Mitch McConnell had promised that there could be a Senate solution to come to the floor with regard to the Dreamers. It's not clear that anything that could pass the floor in the Senate could actually get through the House, and we kind of end up in the same starting point all over again.
So what about that debt ceiling? We've had this happen before, and we walked right up to the line and backed down because everyone's sort of afraid of the U.S. reneging on its obligations. Given what's going on politically up there, it seems to be increasingly even more partisan. Is there a danger now that it's so contaminated, the water, that they actually would run up against the debt ceiling?
I think running up against the debt ceiling is kind of par for the course. Whether or not it's seriously at risk is a different story. I mean, there's a difference between kind of basic governance, which is what the Senate is kind of struggling with right now. DACA, budget caps, the other thing we haven't talked about, and the debt ceiling versus issues with the memo and Russia and other things. And so, basic governance at the end of the day, even if it is these kind of short-term extensions, seem to be par for the course. That's the way we'd be looking at it as well. But walking up to that line, that's entirely possible.